I'm glad that Sue reminded me of this. The Simpsons, Don Simpson, who you know was our area minister for a long, long time and lives just down Brattle Street, not far from here. Betty, his wife, had a stroke this week. I haven't caught up with their condition. But Don is not doing very well, not able to take care of himself either. And as you know, their only child died about 6 years ago, I think, their son, suddenly, and in his, I think, early 50s or mid-50s at least. So it's a very difficult time for them, and I know that their church is working hard to take care of them and make some arrangements because they're not going to be able to live in their home anymore. So you can imagine what a crisis this is for them. And Don is one of the mentors I've had over my ministry. I appreciate it very much. He sort of single-handedly started me in Massachusetts. So if you have appreciation for me being here, it's really because of Don Simpson. He put my name in at a church that I had no intention of serving. And then when I interviewed with them, I said, oh, this would be a good place to be in. The rest is history. I was ordained 35 years ago on the 17th of December. So I celebrated my 35th anniversary this year. I was ordained in a different denomination, the Full Gospel Christian Church, which grew out of a ministry that started in the service in the military. And I was ordained in a storefront church. So there was a piano in the corner and a table, which was by no means an altar, and a makeshift pulpit, which I think was some kind of a fixture in a retail store at one time. And everything was nicely decorated, and I started out on metal folding chairs, which you know to this day I cannot stand. And when I retire, I will never sit on another metal folding chair in my entire life. I'm going to bring chairs with me when I go to church meetings. And it was a very different kind of ministry then, and the folks that gathered around me to lay hands upon me and pray are people, two of which I had known in the Navy, and others I had no touch with. And essentially the ministry I did was Bible study to people who came from the businesses and factories around that area. It was actually near the factory, the business that my father worked at. And we would have Bible study at noontime, and then we would all go back to where we were working. I would go back to the drugstore, and other folks would go back to wherever they were working. And it was an interesting kind of ministry, and there was no overhead because the storefront was donated, and everything in the place was donated. And the pastor of the church made no money. Don't get the idea that, I think that's a good thing. But he was a man who had retired from business and had gotten a Bible school education and was ministering as his vocation in retirement. And it was an interesting way to start, having come, of course, from the Lutheran church, which was very different. I think back about all the people that I've known since then and all the places I've been. And I have to tell you that this year has been a lot of reflection for me. There are days when, and you've probably noticed this, I don't want to hear one more thing about the church. I don't want to see one more church person. I don't want to hear one more problem. I don't want to look at any more stuff to get ready for sermons. And then there are other days when I can't imagine anything else that I could possibly do. I just read something very interesting written by Martin Marty, who was writing a foreword to a book I'm going to be using in the sermon today. And he talked about how among the college students that he deals with, and he teaches at the University of Chicago, most college students would say to him the most boring thing they could probably think of would be going to church. Everything is always done the same way. Everybody sits facing the front. Everything is the same week after week after week. And his comment about that is that, the church does need to be making some changes. But in contrast to that, he says, if those college students had only spent a week following the minister around, they would have a different opinion of what's happening. There's no other vocation like this. I know a lot of things which I would never, of course, disclose to you, some of which would stand your hair on end, and other things that you would find so inspiring and so wonderful, and things about the people and the places that I have been that have enlivened me a great deal. Sometimes it creates an overload, I have to admit to you, but at other times I'm just so very grateful that I have the privilege of doing this, and so many of you letting me into your life at times that are very difficult times for you. I think the local church should be replaced, but I can't imagine what we would replace it with. I can't imagine anything else or any other style of thing that would take the place of what we are able to accomplish here, in spite of the fact that sometimes we are incredibly dull. And I'm sure you could remember sermons when you said, "Ooh, I could have stayed home today and, watched Jeopardy." But at other times, there are those moments when a light goes on with all of us, or some of us, and we say, yeah, God is truly here with us. Let's go to God now in prayer.